Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
On Thursday, Senator Kamala Harris took social media by storm as well as the Republicans when she said, "Vice President, I'm still speaking." Joining me after that fiery debate is her uncle, Professor Balachandran, who's joining us here in New Delhi. Professor, welcome to ThePrint. My first question to you is, that was a fiery debate between Kamala Harris as well as Mike Pence on Thursday. It was civil, even though it was really fiery in comparison to the debate between Trump and Biden the other day. What was your first impression of the debate?
Honestly speaking, it went as I expected, because Pence is far more civil than Trump, and Kamala doesn't lose her temper very much. So I expected it to be a more civilized debate. Also, the two debaters, Kamala, had a sort of handicap in the sense everybody expected her to do very, very well. Okay? Although she had told people, look, Pence is also a good debater, don't expect too much of me. But there were high expectations of Kamala. Pence, unfortunately, had an albatross around his neck. And that albatross was President Trump. So he had to do a good job with that hanging around his neck. He did the best he could, but given the circumstances and given the subjects, he was handicapped.
The most defining moment in that debate, Professor, that has taken social media by storm as well as Republicans is the point where, as we mentioned in the introduction, when Kamala Harris said that, "Vice President, I'm speaking," she did not like the way he was interjecting her. It was a really assertive move on her part, and people really, it resonated with people as a strong leadership position that Kamala Harris is speaking from. What was your impression of that moment that has really gone down in history?
See, there's nothing she could have done else. Biden was much more aggressive. He said, "You shut up, man," okay? For two reasons. One, she is not used to using such sharp language. But on the other hand, she had to say, "Look, let me complete my sentence." So it was the best she could have done, telling Vice President, and she didn't say, "Please," she said, "Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking," okay? She did it as polite as she could. There have been some criticism that she was smiling. I mean, she can't put that's a no-win situation. If she puts a hard face, people will say she was very hard. If she puts a smiling face, she was a smirk. But that was the least she could have done, and that was the best she could have done.
That comment seems to have rattled the Republicans to a large extent, because Trump today has gone ahead and said that Kamala Harris is a communist. He has even hurled personal abuses at her, calling her a monster. So it does appear that Trump seems to be completely rattled by Kamala Harris, who he is looking at as a formidable opposition.
That was the least she could have done, okay? Biden, remember, he told the president to shut up, man, okay? She can't say that. She wouldn't say that. That was not the way she had been brought up. She had been brought up being firm but not rude. So she has to make a balance between not being rude but being firm, yet respectful to the Vice President. I mean, after all, he's the Vice President. So given all those things, she balanced it very well, I think. Many other people would have, acted far more angrier. She didn't want to seem angry because that would have detracted from the strength of her argument. Okay, she did very well, I think.
Do you think she should respond to these comments that Trump is making against her at this point, where he's calling her a monster, he's calling her a communist, he's just going all out at her? Do you think she should respond, or do you think that the response should be a dignified silence, perhaps, that would show the contrast between the two of them?
No, she speaks to the principles and the policies rather than this. Silence itself is a comment. I know once a dramatist, one playwright, cornered George Bernard Shaw and asked him, "Sir, you have seen my play, but you have not written anything. You have been silent." He says, "Silence is a criticism," okay? So she would say, "Look, I'm ignoring you. I mean, I walk on the street, a lot of dogs bark. I don't bark back at the dog," okay?
Now, coming to the core issues of the debate that we saw, starting from the coronavirus pandemic, where she called the handling of the pandemic one of the biggest failures that the presidential administration has ever seen in the history of the United States, to even the Black Lives Matter movement. What do you think? How did she portray? How did she position herself in comparison to Pence, who seemed a little bit on the defensive there?
But I told you, she's on the home ground. Pandemic obviously is an administration failure. Everybody has been saying that. Therefore, she took the administration failure to take the Americans into confidence. Okay? She said you should trust the Americans. So that's the best she could do. There's no point in saying you failed because they had failed. On Black Lives Matter, you don't tell a black woman, African woman, about Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's like somebody telling me, coming to India, saying about the horrors of the British rule, okay? So on those two subjects, he shouldn't have taken it at all, because that was her home ground. These are very few subjects he could have taken her head on.
So do you think that she did better than Pence?
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. See, on coronavirus, the virus pandemic, she had improved. On Black Lives Matter, people say, what is this fellow talking about Black Lives Matter? He's the one who said it's all right, there's no racism in years. So that takes him out. On the Supreme Court, she's a member of the Judiciary Committee, and she had grilled Kavanaugh and Barr like anything, but they were afraid of her. So you don't talk to her about judiciary. There's no point talking to her about law and order. She was the Attorney General, a prosecutor in San Francisco, Attorney General of California. She had done a lot of things. So on most of these subjects, she was on home ground. And therefore, Pence should not have taken that at all because he was. That's why he didn't answer those questions. He meandered around all over the place, okay? So the only time Pence answered sensibly, and I think he would have got a strong feedback, not feedback, a strong pushback from Trump was his answer to the last question. When the answer to the girl is that, look, in states, we may differ, but we work together. Democrats and Republicans. I don't think Trump would have liked it. Trump says, I don't work with anybody, and this fellow goes and says, he'll work with the Democrats. So I'm sure that he shouted at him like hell. But that was the only answer that Pence gave, which was sensible. Okay.
And finally, Professor, I want to ask you that after this debate, what is your sense? Are you seeing Kamala in that office, and are you seeing a Harris-Biden victory on November 5th?
Far more than what I told you last time. Last time when Biden had chosen her, when people came, I said, look, given everything, I would say it's about 3 in 4 chance. That's 75% that Biden will win. Now it is much higher. It's certainly more than 85, maybe 85 to 90%. It's more not a question of who will win. It's a question of will that fellow leave the White House. That is anybody's guess. Even the Americans don't know what to do. Actually, I don't think they have figured out how to get him out of the White House if he says no.
All right then. Thank you so much, Professor Balachandran, for speaking to us there. Kamala Harris's uncle being very confident and saying that the tide is certainly in her favor. That's all that we have for you at this moment. Thank you so much for watching The Print, and do follow us on social media for all the latest news and updates.